Hey, it's Lemon. Welcome to the Backlogs. Hope you're doing well. After an entire month of playing games from my backlog, some new, some old, I've been feeling a bit nostalgic. And then it hit me. While I swore off Salt and Sanctuary a while back, there were actually a few weapon types that I ignored back when I was doing challenge runs for the game. And with Sexy Party Solaire suddenly becoming a thing that we do now, it only felt right to give in to my nostalgia and revisit the game, bringing our friend along for the ride. That's right, today we're gonna find out. Can you beat Salt and Sanctuary with only whips? So first things first, we need to pick our class and our armor. That'll do. Shout out to Persona Gem for making the mod. They're actually the same person who made the Elite Knight mod for me all those years ago. What a callback. Now unfortunately, the mod requires me to take the Paladin class for the armor to work, so we can't just jump to the Hunter class for its whip. But don't worry, I have a plan. We take the Grasping Ring as our gift of choice, since that'll give me extra salt with every kill, and because the option is available to me, I'm gonna play with the enhanced combat rule set, because the balancing of the game overall is just a bit better with it on. And after a 2-year hiatus, we're back. Behold, the man, the myth, the legend, reborn and ready to... Wait, where's his rock hard abs? Who the heck is this string bean? Well, considering the channel started with Salt and Sanctuary and made its way into Dark Souls, I guess Salty Party Solaire is just the prequel to the sexy party boy we know and love. We all gotta start somewhere. So why not start your grooming journey with today's sponsor, Manscaped? Oh, you okay, Lemon?
Yeah, I just need to catch my... Just do the ad.
Okay. Do you need a little extra oomph when it comes to your personal grooming? Well, Manscaped is here to help with the Performance Package 5.0 Ultra, featuring the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra electric trimmer. This bad boy is all you need to get a smooth, sleek finish. Simply use the trimmer blade to get the job started, then swap over to the foil blade to make sure you get down to skin level. Need a little extra help to make sure you get all those straggler hairs? The trimmer has an LED light with 2 different light temperatures to make sure you can see everything. And for those who love practicality as well as function, the trimmer has a travel lock so it stays off until you're ready to use it, is USB-C chargeable, has an easy-to-read battery life indicator, and it's waterproof. The Performance Package also comes with the Weed Whacker 2.0 for all of your nose and ear trimming needs, the Crop Soother and Crop Preserver, which, exist, and because Manscaped likes to make sure that you've got a full box, you'll also get a pair of boxers and a quality bag to store all of your goods inside. So if all that sounded good to you, you can head over to manscaped.com and get your hands on the Performance Package 5.0 Ultra today. When you use my promo code, you'll get 20% off plus free international shipping plus 2 free gifts, by which they mean the boxers and bag. You know, I have a weird feeling that this isn't what Manscaped meant when they asked me to show off how well the trimmer works. Lemon, thoughts?
Well, I mean, they didn't say we couldn't.
God, I love bureaucracy.
Anyway, back to the action. Because of our choice of class, we aren't going to be able to beat the tutorial boss, the Unspeakable Deep. Which is a shame, because it gives you a lot of salt for beating it, as well as an upgrade material we need for later. Ah well, can't win them all. But after waking up on the shivering shore, it's time to start our journey proper. I talked to old man Jarrett here, tell him I'm part of Devara's Covenant, because that's about as close to the Sun Bros as we can get for now, and make our first sanctuary. Cozy. After that, our first task is to run all over the Festering Banquet, collecting as many loose items as we can find. We can't fight back just yet, so there's a lot of dodging and screaming going on at the moment, but don't you worry. We'll be whooshing real soon. Mark my words. And with everything finally collected from the banquet, I take a nice little shortcut to get past the locked door below. Yup, I still got it. Fun fact, I think I mentioned it when I covered the enhanced combat update, but several combat complaints I had in the past have been rectified. For example, the twin metal ring is actually in the game now. Combine that with the fact that fists can now riposte, and a fist-only run is a bit more feasible these days. But we're not here to punch things to death. We did that already. No, I'm here to get whippin'. And there just so happens to be a whip in the Watching Woods. And after 3 near misses in a row, all skill, no luck, I grab the first whip of the game, the Bullwhip, and can officially start the run. Oh, that platform was supposed to be back already. Yep, that feels familiar. Now then, let's see what this thing can do. Well, there's not a whole lot of move variety. You can either whip, or you can whip harder. That's pretty much it. But I will say the attack speed is pretty dang impressive, and it looks like it has some decent range on top of it. As far as two-handing the whip goes, I think it increases the damage a bit, but really slows down your attack speed. And as someone who loves to get in, get out, I think I know which style I'll be using throughout the game. Now then, how about an upgrade? I collect 3 locks of hair from the Village of Smiles, and immediately put the blacksmith in the village to work, boosting my bullwhip to level 2 with ease. I also got to test out the new ability of the whip class that the enhanced combat update added. If the tip of your whip hits an enemy, you'll do a crit, which translates to about 50% extra damage. Attack from up close and hit your target with the hilt or rope part of your whip, and you'll just get normal damage. Simple enough, but a welcome addition to the formula. Always cool to reward a player for playing well. I nabbed the Mossy Charm from the left side of the Watching Woods, which will make my whip attack even faster, then grabbed the Pale Charm on my way back to the Festering Banquet, since that increases my whip's range. Good for reaching enemies that decide to camp on ledges. I scoop up a Soldier's Poem, which lets me boost my whip to level 3 for just a little bit more damage, then pump a few points into the skill tree. We're obviously going to want to reach whip 5, so we might as well start making our way up now. And we'll collect as many dexterity nodes as we can along the way, since our current weapon has A scaling with dex. Oh wait, that actually means something now. Looks like the enhanced combat update actually shows you the scaling numbers, not just a letter. Neat. Anywho, time to get to work. The first boss, the Sodden Knight. Time to see if I remember how to whoo! Okay, got a little greedy there, but maybe if we... It definitely took a few hits, but eventually my muscles remembered the old patterns. And with my whip already upgraded quite a bit, our damage is looking pretty solid as well. One final combo from the Sodden Knight, and a quick dodge out of harm's way from me, and it's over. The first boss of the run. Dead and gone. That wasn't bad. That wasn't bad at all. Next stop, the Village of Smiles. Or it would be, if we hadn't already cleared the place out beforehand. There's still a few goodies lying around behind hidden walls and enemy clusters, like the Wrapped Link, which is a welcome addition to any build I do in this game. But with that collected, it's time to take on boss number 2, the Queen of Smiles. The Queen is actually a very easy fight, if you know what to expect. She attacks slowly during the first phase of the fight, so getting attacks in is pretty easy. And so long as you dodge her rush attacks, you'll be just fine. Keep your stamina high and the pressure on, and her phase 2 attacks aren't much to talk about either. You know, I think I'm starting to get the hang of this again. Right, what's next? I collect the Bloodflower Charm, which gives my weapon a damage boost when equipped, then head back into the Watching Woods to face the next boss, the Mad Alchemist. This one took a minute to remember how to deal with. Between the poisonous slimes whittling your health down throughout the fight, the elemental pots he throws everywhere, and the fact that the nearest sanctuary gives you a slow health recovery instead of the usual quick charge, this might be a problem. Or I can just choke down red grass like it's going out of style. That'll fix everything. Combine that with playing aggressively throughout the second phase, and hey, would you look at that, dead boss. Moving right along, I make my way to Whips 4 in my skill tree in anticipation of greater weapons to come, then take on the optional boss at the bottom of the Sunken Keep, the Kraken Cyclops. Unfortunately for him, my memory is well and truly back. Dodging his attacks takes nothing at all, and combined with my whip's critical hit damage, that's all she wrote. Kraken Cyclops down, with a no damage run to boot. You'll love to see it. With the Cyclops' death, I reach Whips 5, which means we're going to need something new to focus on for the rest of the run. I'll give it some thought. Wait a minute, what am I talking about? Less thought, more whip. We've got a false jester to kill. It took me a minute to remember how quick and wide the jester's hitboxes are, but with a good amount of dodging and a little too much greed, the jester is as good as dead. 5 bosses down in less than an hour. Hell of a good start. I get my first brand, Vertigo, which lets me walk on ceilings, then use said brand to get into the Castle of Storms. Not a whole lot to see here, but there are a few more soldiers' poems lying around, which means it's time to set up a new base of operations. I bring in the usual suspects, the blacksmith, merchant, and guide. Make sure to buy some horns so I can warp around the entire map, and also because chat loves horns. Upgrade my bullwhip to level 4, which is as high as it can go until we get further into the game. Then go after the next boss, the Kraken Worm. Oh, would you look at that? 9 damage. Whip's overpowered, please nerf. Well, it may not be a powerhouse, but with enough pattern recognition and patience, it should get the job done. I wasn't expecting it, but the whip is actually able to stun the worm every now and again, which helps interrupt some of its more annoying attack patterns. And though it took a lot longer than I would have liked, the worm goes down on the next try, which not only gives me a boatload of salt, but also gives me one of the 3 things I need for my final build, the Kraken Worm's Horn. Now I know what you're thinking. Lemon, why is Salty Party Solaire letting people brand him over and over again? Well, it's simple really. SPS likes the special mobility powers that the brands give him, and he's also in his experimental phase. Don't yuck his yum, let the boy figure himself out. But no, the real question you wanted to ask is why we need the Kraken Worm's Horn, and that answer is also simple, because it's part of our endgame weapon. The weird thing about this build is that we really don't need much of anything. There's no crucial rings or armor pieces or anything like that. The only thing I want, not need, is a new whip, the Phoenix Tail. A whip that can set enemies on fire. Now it does require an endgame transmutation material, as well as 100,000 salt to craft. But hey, life goals. First things first though, we need to reach the endgame. And since we're here in the Red Hall of Cages, we might as well make a slight detour to help achieve that goal. Let me just do a super secret knock to get in. And there you go. The secret Sun Bros of Gold and Wine. Our true choice of covenant. We don't need anything from them yet, but we will soon. For now, let's just deal with the Tree of Men, the boss that tends to separate the wheat from the chaff. Because of the whip's long range, getting through the first phase is relatively painless, and so, with little fanfare, we're able to jump right into phase 2. This part is a bit harder, but not by much. With the Pale Charm equipped, my whip still has the range to hit the Tree of Men's head, which means we can more or less skip to phase 3, where the Tree of Men decides that it's had enough and uses a flamethrower between every attack. Personally, this is my least favorite part of the entire game, since the flamethrower forces you to run from one side of the arena to the other, dodging the somewhat unpredictable flame vents along the walls each and every time. But after several minutes of jumping back and forth, and almost half of my health bar destroyed by burns, it's over. First try, not even close. I level up my dexterity a few times with my newly acquired salt, grab the Trickster's Band from nearby, which gives me an additional 3 dexterity just for wearing it, then hop, skip, and jump my way right into the next boss fight, the Disemboweled Husk. It took me a hot minute to remember how to avoid his gunfire, or rather, to remember that I need to avoid his gunfire, and I also learned the hard way that slamming back wine to heal myself is not the best idea in the middle of the fight, because if you do it enough, you'll poison yourself, actively going against the whole point of healing in the first place. So yeah, first attempt, worst attempt. My second try went much smoother though, as the Husk was much more prone to jumping than shooting this go around. And despite him deciding to change tactics and use his gun again in phase 3, it was too little too late. Moving on, you know what would help smooth this run out even further? Some golden wine. And wouldn't you know it, I seem to have killed enough skullbats throughout the run to unlock some. So, with a new flavor of wine in hand and a pep in my step, I make my way through Blighttown, the Mire Stench, and take the fight to the next boss, that Stench Most Foul. There's not much to see here. Drink the golden wine, whip the stench, whip the minions, profit. I will say that the stench is a little harder than usual, what with the weapons damage being pretty low and the minion AI being fixed in one of the previous updates so that they don't get stuck on the edges of the arena anymore, but the changes aren't drastic enough to warrant anything more than a first try. You know, we're only about halfway through the game, but I feel like we already know how the rest of this run is going to go. Find the next boss, briefly forget how its moves work, get punished, then remember the correct boss pattern and absolutely demolish the boss on the first or second try, no questions asked, no further input needed. It's a shame, really. These bosses are all unique in their designs, and are really fun to fight when you know how to beat them. But that's the catch-22. Once you know how to beat them, the fight ends, and then you're back to hunting down the next boss. Maybe it's a bit arrogant to say so, but I think I was correct when I decided 2 years ago that I had outgrown Sultan Sanctuary. I just know the game a bit too well for it to be challenging, and although I love it to pieces and it's a wonderful comfort game for me, there's just not a whole lot more for me to discover here. I know where all the upgrade materials are, know most, if not all, of the weapon movesets, and although some bosses have been changed over the years to make them a bit more difficult, when you've beaten the entire game with your bare fists, there's really not much more a game can throw at you. But it's not all bad. There's nothing wrong with knowing a game so well that you literally wrote an entire wiki for it. Sure, it'll be harder and harder to find that dopamine rush you get when you discover something new, but there's an endless cascade of new games to play out there these days. Some would argue too many, myself included. And while discovering something new is always fresh and exciting, sometimes, after a long day, you just need something reliable to fall back into. An old friend who's always got your back, no matter what's going on in life. So, while I may not have much more to say about the game, or this challenge run in particular, maybe that's okay. Maybe it's alright to just enjoy it. Yeah, you know what? I think it is. And hey, it's a big world out there, with endless possibilities. And while I might not have much to say about challenge runs for Sultan Sanctuary, having said enough about the subject already, I'm not the only one talking about it these days. YouTube has been kind enough to recommend to me a new player on the scene, SHOUTOUTS. It looks like they've been doing some of the challenges I did back in the day, but ramped up in difficulty. And just to be perfectly clear, I have no ill will whatsoever for him doing so. We're well past the YouTube statute of limitations for content dibs, so he really didn't have to go all out and make the runs even harder. He even occasionally uses my wiki, which he really shouldn't, considering it's for console players and doesn't cover the enhanced combat update. Sorry about that. I'm also now noticing, after having done this entire run and written 2/3 of the script, that he recently beat Sultan Sanctuary with whips only. Whoops, my bad. Hopefully my bringing attention to his channel is enough for payment for any stepping on toes I just accidentally did. So yeah, if you've been thirsty for Sultan Sanctuary content, which you probably are considering you're watching this video, There you go, a whole new runner to keep an eye on. We wish him well. And, in the off chance that he's watching this video, a little challenge for you, Sheen. I've heard tell that the Firebomb Academy now has a special ring in Sultan Sanctuary. Do me a favor and try to beat the entire game with only fire pots, light vessels, and grenades, would you? Oh, and don't listen to the comments. They're all going to suggest that you try to beat the game with potatoes. They're not to be trusted. In other news, I just beat almost every boss while you weren't looking. Yeah, that's right. I know you weren't actually watching the video. I see you. Don't worry, you didn't actually miss anything. I mean, you missed me killing the Witch of the Lake on the first try, but, 3 more bosses to go, starting with the 3. Wait, that was confusing. How the hell do I word that? It took me a few seconds to remember my old strategies for fighting these bozos, but I very quickly remembered rule number 1. Don't stand in the middle. But after getting kicked in the face a few more times, I eventually remembered the rest of my mantra. Run from one side of the arena to the other, and always focus fire on the Forgotten Judge first. After that, the rest of the fight was a cakewalk. The Forgotten Knight burned to cinders, and less than 10 seconds later, the Forgotten King followed suit. Oh hey look, it's that endgame transmutation material I mentioned earlier in the video. I was starting to get worried that we wouldn't see our endgame weapon in action. Of course, we still need the 100,000 salt it takes to build the damn thing, but hopefully Scourge here is willing to give me what I need. Considering this boss was my worst enemy back in my speedrunning days, I don't need a minute to remember how to beat him. Simply jump over his lightning ball attack to avoid it, use jump attacks to hover over his breath, and run towards him when he starts to do the trident blasts to manipulate his AI into thinking you're behind him, keeping you completely safe and giving you even more time to whip him into shape. And there you go. Easy peasy. What? Only 27.5? Dang it, we're 11.5 short. Well, no biggie. I've been carrying these boxes of salt around with me all day. It's probably about time we used them. There we go, 100,000 and some change. And there it is, the Phoenix Tail. It's technically a sword whip, which means it has a mixed moveset of both weapons, but it's not like we'll be losing much of a moveset by switching over. It also scales with strength and magic, which I don't have a whole lot of points in at the moment, but I'm sure it's fine. Let me just pop on over to the Ziggurat of Dust real quick, where I can nab the martial flail off the ground, and there we are. Transmutation complete, endgame weapon acquired. Now, it does need to be upgraded, since we used a base level weapon to create it, but it uses the charred upgrade materials, which are super easy to find. We already have enough charred dolls and charred lockets to get it to level 4, which you can find in the Red Hall of Cages and Crypt of Dead Gods respectively. There's a stack of 3 charred reliquaries at the bottom of the ruined temple, which will get it up to level 6, and so long as you're able to brave the platform puzzle going up the Tower of Fire and Sky, or smart enough to just wall jump around it, there's a somewhat hidden chest on the roof of the tower that'll give you the last upgrade material you need, the Charred Tome. And there you go, Phoenix Tail level 7 acquired. As far as movesets go, it's mostly sword swings, which we obviously aren't allowed to use, but its strong attack is a whip, which is completely fair game. As for the two-handed moveset, it's completely useless to us. Nothing but sword attacks, sadly. One quick little test run before we go. Oh yeah, that'll do. And so, with endgame weapon in hand and bottle of wine in my pack, it's time to finish the run. The final boss, the Nameless God. Considering all the bosses before him, he definitely deserves to be the final challenge of the run. His moves are a bit unpredictable if you don't know how to manipulate them, his defenses are off the charts, and his attacks hit like a truck with a bed full of bricks. I'll admit, it looked a little dicey for a minute there, and by the end of the fight, I ran out of wine, which is the worst thing that could happen to a sexy party. Solaire. But the sexy party must go on, and despite a lack of wine and six-pack abs, Salty Party Solaire brings it home, proving without question that you can, in fact, beat Sultan Sanctuary with only whips. You know what? This was a good time. This was actually the very first run I ever did as the Backlogs, but this was back in my streaming days when I was only on Twitch, which means that I already knew this run was possible, but sometimes you just need to revisit your roots and get back to basics. And funnily enough, while I was in the process of making this video, Sultan Sanctuary got an update. Turns out, the game now has an in-game randomizer, where you can randomize the items, randomize the enemies, or both. There's also an option to make the enemies scale, which means that even if you get an endgame boss instead of the Sodden Knight, it'll be scaled down to be less difficult, helping keep soft-locked runs at bay. You know, it's funny. I gave up the game 2 years ago, but the moment I decide to change my mind and go back to my roots, I find out that the game is still changing. Maybe there's still a few new things to find and discover in this game after all, but that's a journey for another time. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I don't normally say this, but if you want to see more of my content, maybe consider subscribing to the channel. Did the subscribe button light up? Apparently it does that now whenever you ask people to subscribe, which is either awesome or horrifying. Not sure how I feel about that, to be honest. But in any case, that's all I've got. Take care of yourselves, be good to one another, and I'll see you all again soon.